I'm going to demonstrate the necessary steps it would take to change a cable or both cables in a boot. To do this, you're going to need the provided L wrench that comes in your accessories bag, same bag that your spare tension straps and O-rings are in, and a size 2 Phillips head screwdriver. If your boot's all dirty and muddy, or even slightly dirty, wash the boot off, get it as clean as you can. This will make disassembling and assembling new cables in the boot much easier. The first thing that you're going to have to do is you're going to have to take the captivator off your boot. To do this, you have to take apart the pulley buttons. So, using your Phillips screwdriver, you're going to take the screw out and remove the outer piece of the pulley button. It's necessary to hold pressure on the inner piece of the pulley button to keep it from spinning while you loosen the screw. So I'm going to use my finger. You could also use a pair of channel lock pliers, grabbing like the front and the back side, and then take the screw out. And then to get the inner piece of the pulley button out, there's a molded slot in the captivator that the cable has to be pushed into before the inner piece is allowed to come out. So, pushing on the back of the captivator and holding the cable, I force the cable up in that slot, and out pops the pulley button. So here you can see that slot that I'm talking about in the captivator. So again, I'm holding pressure on the back of the pulley button. Push the cable up into the captivator slot. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate what I was talking about using channel locks. So I have crimped down on the front, and I don't know if I can show you very well, but I have a hold of the back piece at about the same spot. So easy peasy, right out comes the screw. Okay, so now if you're only replacing one cable, make sure that before you begin taking the set screws out of the cable clamp that you determine if the good cable, the cable that's still fine, has a paint dot on the cable. This paint dot corresponds with the reference marks on the boot for the cable length for adjustments. So if you don't have a paint dot on your cable, then get out like a felt tip marker, a Sharpie, and make a mark on your cable that you're going to correspond with the boot. Okay, and then to remove the cable, you have to rotate your cable clamp out using your L wrench to a 90-degree angle, and then you're going to loosen and remove the two set screws in the cable clamp. Make sure you put those somewhere safe. You don't want to lose them. And if you rotate the cable clamp back, you can pull out the broken cable, or if you're replacing both, which I recommend. I mean, if you're going to replace one and pull the boot apart, you might as well replace both of them. So, for that, you just slide the cables out. And I guess I could have taken the tension strap off so it wasn't in the way. And your boot would be disassembled. You could take the cable clamp out, further cleaning the boot before putting new cables in. You want to make sure that your guideways that the cable runs through are nice and clean. You can use your L wrench to help clean those out. And then when you go to reassemble your boot with new cables, make sure that your cable clamp, there's a little hole in the front of it. this needs to be faced out, and the two sockets that the set screws go in need to go up. So lining this channel that the cables go through with the tunnel here. And then I'm just going to put the same cables back in the boot, but you start with the end opposite the cable adapter, the end that has a little welded tip. So run that from the front to the top guideway, and then back into the tunnel through the cable clamp. So in doing this, you want to make sure that your adapter meets flush up to your boot. You wouldn't want to put them together with it sticking out like this. So it might also help if you're having troubles feeding it through the tunnel and through the cable clamp if you put a little crimp on the end of the cable. So help follow the cable through the geometry of the boot. Line up the paint dot with your desired reference mark on the boot. Make sure that both sides are equal. When you slide one side, often the other side is pushed backwards. So when they're both equal, rotate your cable clamp back out so that it's a 90-degree angle, and put your set screws back in. So I'm only partially tensioning the first set screw, and I'm going to do this to the second set screw. This will help seat the cables, kind of like if you were doing the lugs on your tire. And I'm going to go back to the first set screw using the short end of the wrench and do final tension on them. I'm getting the set screws tight, but I'm not getting them as physically tight as possible. You know, if over tightened, I could strip out the top of the set screws, making future adjustments impossible without new cable clamp and new cables again. So make sure they're tight, but understand you can't overdo it. Okay, so now we need to put the captivator on. I'm going to do it with leaving the liner on the captivator. It is a little more difficult if the liner's on the captivator when you put it back on the boot, but it can be done. So sliding the loop. Again, I'm holding pressure on the inner side with my finger to keep it from spinning while I tighten it. Repeat this to the other side. The second side is going to be a little more difficult because now you can't just pull the captivator out. So I'm going to push the wall of the boot down. That'll help me put the inner piece in. It's really not as difficult unless you're trying to do it so that the camera can see. But there we go. Again, fingers holding pressure on the inner piece of the pulley button until it's tight. And I gotta put the tension strap back on. So the pastern strap ends on this side, so I'm going to want the tension strap to end on that side. This makes it a right boot so that the end of the strap faces to the outside of the horse, the lateral side. So starting with the short end of the hooked Velcro, I'm going to feed it from the front side between the roller and the adapter. And pull it across, and the end through the inside, pull it back across the front.